Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right, here we are at Flipping Houses for Rookies. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Bill, and good morning, all rookies and rookettes.
There you go. So we're at episode 248. Before we even start, I want you to know that today is the first day of the rest of our lives. This podcast is the beginning of a new era. That's what I should say.
Yeah, big difference. Careful. Yeah. Whoa, big difference. Like, that's enough of the errors.
I plan to not blow your wig off today, but I'm going to blow your head off. And I don't mean that derogatorily or like with a gun and be gross or anything like that. I am going to spin your head, Peter. Spin your head. I have magic in my paws right now that's taken me 20 years and hundreds of deals to figure out. And I've been testing it with my own team and with my private coaching clients, and I've got it nailed. So today we are going to cover it, and I promise you episode number 248 is going to be a new beginning.
That's awesome. And you know what? Go. Somehow I believe you.
Gee, I wonder why.
I believe you.
Name of today's podcast is The Easiest Way Ever Invented for Rookies to Get Fast and Potentially Gargantuan Profits. Looking for a creative real estate shortcut? The footnotes from a 20-year career and hundreds of deals so you can get right down to the bidness. The bidness, Peter, the bidness.
Yeah. Bidness.
And rake in some chunks of dough to ward off the debt and start piling up the reserves so you can live a little less stressful. Mm-hmm. Maybe you are completely irritated from chasing all the new ideas and new shiny objects. Perhaps you are sick and tired of hearing about everyone else's big checks and not getting your own similar results. Hell, possibly you are annoyed at paying those damn credit card bills from past real estate training during an attempt to create a new lifestyle from real estate income. Mm-hmm. Maybe you even did a deal or two and now can't get the income consistent from turning real estate into profit, leaving you feel there are things missing. And you struggle to see it, almost like something is wrong with you. Then this podcast is perfect for you. Today, we will be covering some of the most basics that will circumvent all the frustration and reverse the money flow so it starts coming to you instead of away from you. Now listen up so I can back up my bold claims. How'd I do? Do I have your attention?
Back up your bold claims, Mr. Hawthorne.
All right, Peter. So let's start this podcast off on an odd note.
Well, that won't be anything new. Go ahead.
McDonald's. Let me explain. McDonald's is the most commonly known organization that hires teenagers, adolescents, to work and manage their businesses that make billions and billions of money, no matter where they're located in the world. Mm. They hire teenagers to do it.
That's interesting, you know. I never thought of that, but you don't have to pay teenagers that much to make all that money.
More importantly, how do they make billions of dollars off the backs of teenagers?
Yeah.
Right? The answer? systems. Let's look at the word systems for a minute.
Yep.
So system is, this is some dictionary definition with my own twist to it. Okay. A set of principles, this is what a system is, a set of principles, procedures, or actions to which something is done. An organized framework or method that produces the same results when done correctly. Okay? So a system is a set of principles, procedures, or actions to which something is done, an organized framework or method that produces the same results when done correctly.
Good.
And if not done or done incorrect, produces opposite or undesired results. So, gee, I wonder why so many students have incorrect products or undesired results. So it occurred to me that maybe because I've been spatting that they have misunderstood words and they don't get it, and all this crap I've been spewing out, which is 100% true. I mean, read the book The Power of Words by Sean Clouden. That's SeanClouden. You find it on Amazon. I think it's a $15 book. And it will change your life. Every student that I have ever turned that book onto and read it has come back to me with raving results. Raving. I mean, not even like if a regular result is 1 to 10, these are like 1,000. I mean, from that book. It's not a hard book to read. It's an amazing book. Okay?
Absolutely. That's part of my secret. Absolutely.
But because of one of my coaching clients in the Israel group that keeps asking me, what's the system? What's the system? What's the system? I've been mulling this over in my head. And his name is Itamar. And I want to publicly thank him for pushing me to think about this. So there you go. Right? So a system is a set of principles, procedures, or actions to which something is done, an organization framework, or method that produces the same results when done correctly. Although in past podcasts I've talked a lot about the set of doctrines, which is a set of beliefs, a doctrine is a set of beliefs, ideas and principles that arrange the work, today, all the ideas and all the theory behind it, today I want to go after the raw actions and end products you must achieve to find, get, and close real estate transactions.
Sounds good.
Like I said in the description, the footnotes from 20 years of experience doing hundreds of deals. Almost the same way each time with very common results. And looking back, have only made my mistakes from not following this simple system like I know I should. So when I go off the rail and I decide that I'm smarter than my own system, right? That's when I get stung.
Yeah.
Okay? Does this make sense?
Yeah, well, I've asked that probably in a different way because, any business is a progress. Steps, things change, you find something new, you add it. So it hasn't been untypical over the years that the system has morphed, has improved, has changed a little bit. And it changes kind of fast sometimes. And I've had trouble keeping up with the system. And lately it's kind of calmed down to have okay, this is the system. Because you always find something better to make it work better. But I'm always trying to play catch up because I'm not that smart,
Oh, stop.
I know I'll look real smart, but no, it just takes a lot to work on systems sometimes. And I think you've got some things in I'm wondering what you're getting at today, of course, because folks, I really don't know. I have no idea until I get here, but I believe in systems. I have little systems for things I do, not terribly complicated, but to be successful, the better it is, the better it is.
So here's the thing. You've heard this stuff before. Today I'm just willing to put a stake in the ground and actually go through it step by step. You'll see it. So here's how I'm going to do it today, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna name the flow like a chart.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then go back. So I'm going to name all the steps. There's only 6 of them. I'm going to name the flow of how how every deal happens. This is how every deal happens. Okay. Especially creative real estate. Obviously, I'm talking about creative real estate today. Okay.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff, if you're doing ugly houses and wholesale deals, you may not need to do all this, but you will need to do. You'll need to do it, just not as much as we do it with creative real estate. Okay.
Right. Right.
So I'm gonna list all of them, and then I'm gonna go back and explain the couple of actions on each step, and then the results you're supposed to know, so that you can move on. One of the points that I have figured out is that it's like in sales language, it's called talking past the close.
Right. I know that one.
So what happens is in this process, students tend to talk past the close, or they tend to get the product and they keep going. And they lose a deal because they didn't know they should stop. Mostly because they didn't know what they were supposed to be looking for,
Right.
and didn't see it, and didn't know that they had their answer and they should move on.
Yep.
Okay?
That makes sense. Yeah.
Good.
Well, yeah, you were I don't know, a few podcasts ago, you broke some things down and you say, once you get this done, then you can move on to the next step. And to me, it was like you took a step and you broke it in 2 pieces so I could see, oh, when this little piece is done, then you do that little piece. But it was very enlightening to even consider that and to pay attention to that,
So
look for it.
when I wrote this, to your point, when I wrote this podcast, normally they take me a few hours to write it. It took me a majority of the day to write this podcast. The reason why is because I went back and studied my own podcasts.
Yep.
I went through the notes. I didn't listen to them. I went through the notes I wrote, and I studied my own podcast. So I made sure that I was in alignment with what I've been teaching and that it's all makes sense. And the light bulb went off. Ding. Oh my God, this is crazy. I've been preaching this, and this is how it fits all together. So I wrote this podcast. So here we go.
Good. Okay.
Here are the steps. And I don't want to use the word steps as much as I want to use the word flow.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how it flows, right?
Yep.
So number 1, finding potential seller lists.
Yeah.
Right? So you don't, I've been preaching, you don't want to find a potential seller, you want to find a list. So in other words, you don't want to find one deal, you want to find a congregation of deals.
Right. Now, I see
they're
people
like-minded.
do that. They're looking for a deal. I got to find a deal. Where's that house? They're looking for this one house. Like it's like this magic thing. Oh, I found it. And it doesn't work like that. In a system, you have a lot. You just do the system.
So
and it'll
step
show.
1,
It'll appear.
So step 1 is finding potential seller lists.
Mm-hmm.
Step 2 is contact those potential sellers by text, then by phone. Step 3 is the closing call part 1, known as the discovery stage. Step 4 is the closing call part 2, called offer revealed. Step 5 is the deal meeting part 1, which is property inspection. Step 6 is deal meeting part 2, which is paperwork and closing. Okay, I'm going to read them quickly again before we move on. So step 1 is finding potential seller lists. Step 2, contact those potential sellers by text and then by phone. Step 3, closing call part 1, the discovery stage. Step 4, closing part 2, offer revealed. Step 5, deal meeting part 1, property inspection. Step 6, deal meeting part 2, paperwork.
Yep.
And closing.
It looks familiar, Bill. It fits everything you've been talking about.
So watch this. You're gonna be stunned.
I'm sitting down on purpose for this.
Excuse me. Now, let's chop on each of these with some simple detail so you can follow this set of principles, procedures, and actions on how it is done standardly, because this is why I'm putting the stake down. This is standard technology, standard operating procedures that will allow you to get similar results like all those people, like me, for example. All those people you hear about getting bid checks. Okay?
Yep.
So here we go. Step 1, finding potential seller lists. So here's the description of this step. This is what you're going to do here.
Yep.
Here you will decide who is best for you to contact. This is based on your available time, money, and resources. So if you don't have a lender or don't know where to get money, don't do rehab retail. Go after lease options and slot deals. If you've got 10 or 20 grand in the bank and you want to invest it, then do subject to deals. Right? If you have no credit and you want to make this a part-time job and you're not looking to like replace your income immediately or at least get some extra income to pay debt, then do slot deals and rent-to-own deals. Okay? So here is where you're going to decide who is best for you to contact. This is based on your available time, money, and resources. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. One of the problems in real estate, people think it's real estate, but it breaks down to these different types that you can do.
Right.
And you have to figure which one you can at least start with. You know,
Right.
you didn't start with all of them at once.
No.
You found something that worked and you added to that,
Yep. And that's what I'm suggesting we do here. Okay.
Right.
So here are the actions you're going to take on this step. We're on finding potential seller lists. Okay? So decide one of these strategies first. Strategy 1, search for sale by owners as a list. We're going to call this on-market deals. My goodness, I don't know what's the matter with my throat today. Excuse me. So decide one of these strategies first. 1, search for sale by owners as a list. We call this on-market deals. Number 2, search off-market absentee owners with 30% or less in equity. Decide which one you want to do. Now, are there other ways to find real estate? Are there other lists? Yes. But these two are the most, by far, successful. Especially if you're getting started. These two lists will supply enough leads for you to make consistent income. Does it mean when you're searching for sale by owners or when you're searching off-market absentee owners that you aren't going to find a rehab? Absolutely not. You will. We do. Yep. Does it mean you're not going to find multifamily houses? Absolutely not. We do. Does it mean you're not going to find probate deals? Absolutely not. We do. These are the most widely used lists in our business because it produces the best results. So decide one of these strategies first. 1, search for sale by owners as a list. We call this on market. 2, search off market absentee owners with 30% or less in equity. Now, the trouble that most people are having in real estate right now is they're searching on market properties. And when the market's as hot as it is right now, Everybody's searching those lists.
Yep.
So you need to move to off-market strategies. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
Good. Next, what are the finished products you need before you can move on? Okay?
Yep.
So this step is finding potential seller lists. So the end phenomenon or the end product of this action is this. A full list of a minimum of 2,000 potential sellers to contact. So you want to make sure you have about 2,000 names. If it's FSBOs, you don't even have to download them, although we have ways to do that. I'm not going to get into all the details. That's what coaching and deal hunting, monthly mastery, and all that stuff is for. I'm not here to give you the specifics. I'm here to give you the layout, and I have all those answers, which you can find in other places. I've given them on this podcast. Okay? Point is, if you're in an area, you want to make sure there's at least 2,000 names that could be gotten from that list or that area to be viable.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, can it be less than 2,000 names? Yes, but are you going to have consistent income from that? I don't know. I don't think so. Okay?
Yep.
So these 2,000 names have to have two things. One, they have to have a name, a seller's name,
Yeah.
an email address, a text or phone number, so we can contact them. And two, also make sure you have the property address and the mailing address so you can contact the seller and know what you're talking about.
Right.
Okay? So step number one is finding potential seller lists. At the end of the day, when you do these things that we just talked about, you do the actions and you realize that you finished this step when you have about 2,000 names or a place where you can get 2,000 names, like a service, for sale by owner. Like suppose you go on Zillow, or someplace like that, and you're looking for sale by owners, just make sure there's a bunch of names there.
Yeah.
Okay? So those names, now imagine what I just said, because I just said Zillow, right? Zillow is not, they're not going to give you the address, the mailing address. Right? So you're going to want to, do some skip tracing and do all that kind of stuff, okay? Which we will talk about some other day. But the point is you want to be able to contact these people.
Yep.
Okay? Does this make sense? So we're through step number one, finding potential seller lists. Step number two, contact those potential sellers by text, then by phone. Okay? Here's the description of this step. Here's what you're doing here. You're going to handle the person or the seller. You're going to handle them. We contacted them, and now we're going to handle them on concerns about selling creatively. We do that by finding out, are they willing to take monthly payments until you can pay them off, or some time period? Or number two, take a discount if they want all cash. Okay?
Yep.
So all we're doing here is taking their temperature on, will they consider one of these two? We're not trying to close them on this. We're just taking their temperature. We're just seeing if they're opposed to it. We're not trying to see if they want to do it. We're just seeing if they oppose to it. Do you get the difference?
Sure. Well, it's not time to close the deal yet, is it?
Right.
You just started to talk. I think you've said a few times that the problem, some people, they just try to close.
Right.
Right away. Just talk to them.
Right.
You can't start the first date and then ask the person to marry them because the other guy's going to run.
That's right. The other guy. All right. So the actions to do this are two. So here they are. So decide on one of these strategies in this step. 1, texting to warm up the seller for a phone conversation, and then call. Or 2, just call the seller directly using an outbound script.
Right.
Most people don't like cold calling, and they choose number 1, which is texting and warming them up, and then calling them second. It's a 2-stage process, where step number 2 is just a 1-stage where you just call. I mean, our VAs, our virtual assistants do that. They have a script, and they call people and just weed out the suspects.
Without texting first?
Right.
Oh, okay. I thought you were still using texting, then the call.
I do that too. I have other lists that we have a VA that just texts, so we do both. Because remember what I said, decide on one of these strategies. I happen to use both of them.
Sure. Well, you can. See, I'm willing to talk to people, but my question to you would be, would you get better results with your time if you did texting, which is more broad shotgun, or talking and maybe getting more prospects from talking? Do you have a feel for that yet from all the work you're doing?
So this is why I say decide on one of these strategies.
Yeah.
So you are correct. Texting could be better for your time. So you have an issue with time. Me, I have virtual assistants that I pay 7.5 hours a day to do this work.
Yeah.
I mean, I went in my system yesterday. We were on the Deal Hunting Monthly Mastery last night, and I was kind of poking around. And Sean's got 32,442 leads in my system. And we've only been using this. We're using REI Reply, which everybody knows right now because I've been talking about it so much. We've only been using that since January. Okay. The point is that when you automate it, like you're saying, you have more outflow. Because I'm going to tell you right now, the way to get leads today is massive outflow and mega follow-up.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's where this stuff comes in. Now, I want to make a note here. Okay. I'm going to read this again and then I'm going to read the notes. So the actions are decide on one of these strategies. 1, texting to warm up the seller and then do a phone call. Or 2, call the seller directly using an outbound script.
Yeah.
Now, I'd like to make a note here. Direct mail and bandit signs add to this outflow and are not usually viable enough for consistent, predictable income most of the time. And that's a mistake I see my coaching clients make. Like, I'm going to do bandit signs, and they think they're going to create a business doing that.
No, I've never found any business that you can do one form of marketing, even my little music lesson thing. You know, if you have multiple ways, 2, 3, 5, 7, whatever it is, aren't you better off?
Right.
Always? I mean, to rely on one thing, that doesn't sound smart.
So I'm going to tell you with all my heart, Peter, and you know this because I talk about this all the time. The magic in this business is a numbers game.
Yeah.
So the words are funny because the amount of people that you reach, and I'm not talking about like you reach them and have a two-way communication with them. I'm talking about you just tap on their shoulder and say, hey, look what I'm doing.
Yep.
Right? Kind of like find and communicate to a motivated seller, let them know what you do, and then find out what's needed and wanted, and then give it to them.
Yep.
So what we're doing right now is we reach them, say, hey, Mr. Motivated Seller, that's step number 1. Here we're saying we buy houses.
Yep.
We let them know what we do in this step here. Okay, so what we're doing is we're reaching as many people as possible and saying, hey, we buy houses. We're not even saying to them, do you have a house for sale yet? We're just letting them know. So the more people you can let know that, which is what we call outflow, the more it will come in. Because here's what happens. This universe abhors, can't stand, hates a vacuum. So if you're outflowing and you don't have any inflow, that's a vacuum. So you might be sending out 10,000 yellow letters, and then all of a sudden the neighbor down the street will say to you, hey, my sister's looking to sell her house. You still doing that? It doesn't have to come back the way it went out. It's just the way energy works in this universe. So the more outflow you do, the more deals will land in your lap. Don't worry about, direct marketing, like your rate of return on a specific campaign. What you need to do is have multiple campaigns running so that you do outflow. So what I'm saying here is that even though we're doing texting to warm them up and then a phone call, and then we're calling sellers directly with outbound scripts, or doing both, also doing direct mail and bandit signs, it just adds to the outflow. And it makes the other two work better. Because it's just mega reach. You're reaching, looking for new people that are selling houses to talk to.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
It does, especially if you hire teenagers to put those out for you.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
The signs, yeah. All right, so the finished product here, so those are the actions.
Yeah.
The finished products you need before you can move on from this step is knowing which the potential seller is willing to talk about before you pass them along or start doing a closing call. Because some people do the opening call and the closing call together, which can be done. Some people like myself have virtual assistants or other people call and doing the opening call and then pass it to a closing person, which is what I strongly suggest. I think if you're doing opening calls, you're going to have too many suspects in your ears, and it's going to thwart your reach to want to do more deals. It's going to kill your passion. It's going to stop you from thinking that this business is really viable. Okay? And that is a absolute. There is no other way to say it. It's an absolute. It will kill you.
It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
I mean, how long can you go along doing something, not getting paid, not getting results, and just smile cheerfully and keep trudging? That's one of the problems in this business. People get used to having a job, getting paid by the end of the week.
Right.
And this one, you might have to wait several weeks, a month or two, and then get a bigger check. But boy, those weeks waiting, you have to be willing to move ahead. So you're saying one person do the opening call and let someone else do the closing?
Yeah, eventually you're going to want to get to that because of volume. But in the beginning, you could do both.
Right. Would it help to end the opening call to gather some more data and call the person back?
I'm going to explain this to you right now.
Good.
Okay, so right now we're talking about the end product of how do you know you're done with the contact those potential sellers by text or phone, right? So we're on step 2, which is called contact those potential sellers by text, then by phone.
Right.
Okay.
So for each person, you sort out, are they a person that's willing to do creative financing and take payments? Or they need cash, which would have to be discounted. So that's person by person. You're determining that so you know for sure which way to go. So that way you know what you're doing. You're not like, gee, what should I do with this guy? It's this or that. You know what I like about it? Like computers, 0 or 1. You have 2 choices to make. It's not that hard. Pick one.
That's right. So we used to call this the opening call, but I've changed that because it's actually the contact step. Yeah. Because we could do this with text. I have many students that are stay-at-home moms that do this via text. Okay, so it's the contact step. It's not the opening call.
Yeah.
Okay, so think of it this way. If you're in sales, there's this thing called a gatekeeper. What's the gatekeeper? What's the definition of a gatekeeper?
Well, that's somebody that stands in front of something, a building, a field, an area, and you have to get to this guy, and he decides if you get in or if you go this way or that way.
So they're pre-screening in the name of the decision maker.
Yeah.
Right? Now, the problem is that the decision maker may see things different, and most time there are gatekeepers that aren't appointed. They think they're doing the boss. They think they're doing the boss a favor by shooing off the salesman because he doesn't want to be bothered by him. When in fact the salesman could introduce something to him that could change his life.
Yeah.
But the gatekeeper doesn't know that. So that's a gatekeeper. So basically this is reverse of that. The sellers have to get through our gatekeeper to get to us. It's the reverse of that. And here's how they do that. You ready? Mm-hmm. So these are the end. This is the finished product you need before you can move on.
Yeah.
Okay. One, they're willing to talk about or take monthly payments. Now, you're not trying to close them on taking monthly payments. They're curious about talking about monthly payments. Like, how does that work?
Yep.
Okay. And then number two, they're willing to talk about or take a discount. They're curious. You're not trying to close them on this. They're just curious. Now, when you talk about a discount, at this point, we're not going to talk about or discuss how much of a discount they're willing to accept.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do that later in the proper sequence. Right now, we just want to know that they're willing to take some sort of a discount, that they're not steadfast or stuck on their price, and it's my way or the highway.
Right.
From the seller. Right? So we know when we're done with step two, when the seller's willing to or curious about taking monthly payments, and they're willing to or curious about taking some sort of a discount or talking about some sort of a discount.
Yeah.
Okay? Then we know we're done with this step.
Right.
Okay?
Good.
Now we move on to step 3, which is the closing call part 1, which is known as the discovery step or stage.
Yeah.
Okay? Now here's the description of the discovery stage. You want to discover the situation or what about this property is holding them back from moving on in life. That's huge. It's simple but laser cutting when you figure it out. Like, what about this property is keeping their attention on the property instead of moving on in life? You also want to know, and this is one of your points that you talked about many podcasts ago, why now?
Yeah,
why now?
what happened?
What happened, right? What happened recently that provoked this sale? Right?
Yep.
So like you used to say, scan back in your mind and tell me when you decided to actually sell the property. Oh, okay, January 1st. All right, what happened right before that? And then you'll find out what the situation is.
Yeah, because isn't it true? Haven't you found that sometimes people are not even clear in their own mind why they just get to
Most
this
of
point?
them.
I'm selling, and they might have the idea, but it's not really clear to them either, to the point that they may not know when they find the right deal that would help them to do what they're trying to do because it's unclear.
And you're
You
going
actually
to
help
talk them through it.
Yeah, you help them clarify exactly what they need. And I've seen you do it. I've gotten some success with it too, of course. And they go, oh, yeah, that's what I really need. And they kind of smile a little bit, or you can see you're on the right track. And then they're more willing to work with you because you're helping them what they're really dealing with in their own head.
Right. So now watch this.
It's not complicated.
Watch this. This is so easy to do. Actions. These are the action steps, 2 of them.
Yep.
What's more important to the seller before you go any further? 1, getting their price, or 2, selling quickly.
Yep.
Okay? I'm going to
So
cover
this
this.
is I've wondered when the right time to throw that in. It should be somewhere. Well, it goes here because we're trying to find 1, 2.
Exactly.
Creative.
That's
or
why
cash.
that's why I'm so excited about this, because it's very specific.
Yeah.
Okay, when to do it. It's not an arbitrary anymore, like just throw it in here, throw it in there. It does work, which I do, but it's kind of like it's kind of like what I realized is I'm such a good organ player, I don't need the stops, the stops to make the music anymore. I just play the organ. I don't need all that crap, all the stops and all the special notes and all that stuff. I just play the organ. Right? And I'm not bragging. It's just that's what happens when you do thousands and thousands of these presentations.
Yeah,
you
but
you too could be that way.
Yeah, but you'll do stuff so naturally that if somebody asks you, you go, wait a minute. You have to look at when and how and where am I doing this to explain it to us, because you can feel it and we don't. We go like, should I say that now? Should I ask that question now? We're not stupid, but we don't have the experience all the time. You can just feel it.
So that's why, and this is not an ego thing. It's just you too could do this if you do a lot of presentations, right? So
but
the
this
actions,
will shortcut it for us, though, right? This will shortcut it for
system.
us.
This is the system, just like McDonald's. So closing call part 1, the discovery. Here you're going to discover the situation. What about the property is holding them back from moving on in life? Why now? What happened recently that provoked this sale? And the actions are going to be what's more important to the seller before you go further, getting their price or selling quickly. I'm going to cover that in a couple minutes. Okay, I have some tips about this, but I'm going to get through this first. Okay, so the finished product you need before you move on. Now watch this, Peter. This is really cool. So how do you know you're done with closing call part 1, the discovery stage? How do you know you're completed with that? You need to be fully confident that 1, you know it's need or greed. And 2, you know the loan to value ratio, right, which is the difference between what they owe and what they're trying to get or what the sale is going to be. So number 2, you need the loan to value ratio so you can start to line up a path of progress for this deal based on the math and the seller's willingness or wants. Like, for example, I was on the Deal Hunting Master call last night, and he's telling me that the loan to value ratio was like 50-something% because it was worth 300 and they owed 155. So they're like talking about doing subject to deals and all this stuff, and I'm like, no. The seller told you they won't take less than 255.
Yep.
So here's my point. The loan to value ratio is 255 divided into 300 because they're not going to take less than 255. So you're going to have to take their underlying mortgage of 155 and put a $100,000 note on there which you owe. So your loan to value ratio is going to be 85%. Not the loan to value ratio of the deal, because they're not going to sell for 155. So there's no sense in going there. So what are they willing to do? Well, they're willing to take not less than 255. So your loan to value ratio is 255. So you take the 255 and divide it into the 300, it gives you 85%. That means you could do a rent to own, you could do an option, or you could do a slot deal.
Yep.
Those are your 3 offers.
That's right. Yeah, it's not just what the math will do. If the guy's not willing, who cares?
Exactly.
This isn't like, oh, I know how to do this now, so they'll do it for me because I know how to do the numbers. They don't care what you do with numbers.
Right.
Their willingness is far more important.
Right.
And the numbers back it up. You can't do without the numbers, but if they're not willing to, duh.
At the end of the day, we're going to need that person to sign documents, and they have to be comfortable and confident that it's the right deal for them to sign those documents.
Yep.
Right? So you know that you finished step 3, which is the closing part. Number 1, the discovery step, when you know it's a need or greed deal, or you know confidently what their need is, or if it's greed. And I'm going to cover that in a minute. So you know the loan to value ratio, so you can start to line up the path of progress for this deal based on the math and the seller's willingness or wants. It's starting to formulate in your head now.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
Are you with me?
Absolutely.
Okay, step number 4. Closing call part 2. offer revealed.
Yep.
Description of this step. Now that the discovery is done or far enough into the conversation that you feel like you have a grasp of what can happen or what the seller is willing to do or sell for, you can now start to help them. You do this by aligning the seller's profit or equity with what the seller is willing to do to close. Like we just talked about. Right?
Yeah.
So they owed $155, but they're willing to sell for $255 and it's worth $300. So now we can start to manufacture how we're going to help them.
Here's where you're figuring out how you're going to pay that equity, right?
Right.
Like, how are you going to do it? They're willing to do
Right.
it, but now you're not just going to write a check. We got to figure
Right.
something out. You might, but
Now watch this. This is pretty cool. So here are the action steps. Okay?
yep.
This is the mantra. This is the drum you're going to beat, and this is how you are going to make a frickin' ton of deals. Help the seller get what they want and need from this deal. Help the seller get what they want and need from this deal. Help the seller get what they want and need from this deal. This is the magic. This is the Bill Hawthorne way. This is why I do so many freaking deals.
Mm-hmm.
Now watch this. Step number 1. Do not try to overcome or change the seller's motivation.
Don't talk them out of it.
Don't come up with another idea that cuts across what they want to do. This is where most investors make the big mistake. Trying to change the motivation instead of searching harder at finding sellers that have motivation that aligns with how the investor wants to do transactions. You're looking at me a little stunned, so why don't you repeat what I just said so I can make sure you got it.
I couldn't write it. It was too long. That's why I'm making notes. It was too long to write that all down.
Don't try to overcome or change the seller's motivation.
Right.
This is where most investors make the biggest mistake. Trying to change motivation of that seller instead of actually searching harder at finding sellers that have motivation that aligns with how the investor wants to do the transaction.
Okay.
So pay attention to this. So what is step 1? Finding a potential sellers list, right?
Oh, yeah, that one. Yep.
So we're going to align that with our available resources, right?
Yep.
So what I'm saying is if this seller, okay, isn't lining up, their motivation and our motivation are two different things. Like, for example, they want all cash. They want full asking price and all cash. Matter of fact, nowadays we run a lot of this. Not only do they want cash, but they want $20,000 over the asking price because they think they can get 5 bids tomorrow if they put it on the market.
Which they can.
Some of them can, not most of them. Some of them can. That's more of a, this is like plain telephone. You know, it's like the myth has floated around in society that this is happening, where it's really 1 out of 5 that actually happens to. But they think it's every deal, right?
Yeah, but it's getting so real. It's making the numbers, I think, making the numbers better because people are starting to believe it.
Right.
You know?
Right.
If
Exactly.
they believe it, they'll do it.
Exactly right. So does that align with your motivation? Do you want to pay $20,000 cash in the next 30 days or 45 days over market value? No. So don't do that. So why not save yourself a lot of hassle with step 1 and align yourself to your resources and what you want to do, and then try to talk to just those people.
Yeah.
So here, the action step is to help the seller get what they want and need from the deal. So you're looking for those people that you can help. and you have resources to help. And the rest of them, you just shoo them away.
So is this oversimplifying it? But I have to think of it this way, because I've been in houses with you where this didn't happen almost, and then we reel it back in. There's what the guy or the seller's willing to do, but then there's what we're willing to do.
Hang on. I have that covered.
You do?
Step
I must be tracking right with you, huh?
Step two of the actions. Mm-hmm. And this is extremely important. Stick with what is real to the seller until you figure out how you can sincerely help the seller get what they want. So you have to do it in their reality, what they're willing to experience.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So you need to stick with what is real to the seller until you figure out how you can sincerely help the seller get what they want, and you can give it.
Yeah.
So just because they're telling you they want $20,000 over asking price doesn't mean that it's over. If you keep talking to them, you might find out that that's not really what they want. They just think that's what they want.
Oh.
Or they don't know that there's another way to do it. They don't know that they're going to have 13 to 15% in closing costs. They don't know that, and they don't know that until you educate them.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of times they'll know what they're trying to accomplish, but they don't know how to do it. They think it goes a certain way.
Possibly.
And they think that it can only happen a certain way. Then we show up and say, well, did you ever think of doing this? I've seen you do that.
Right.
Like, well, did you ever think of doing this? Oh, really? I didn't know you could do that. Yeah. Right. How would you do that? And then you find a new solution. Because they don't know. They haven't spent the time we have trying to figure this nut out. And we're still trying to keep up with you.
Right. Make sense?
Yeah.
So step one is don't try to overcome or change the seller's motivation. This is where most investors make the big mistake, trying to change motivation instead of searching harder at finding sellers that have motivation that aligns with how the investor wants to work on a transaction. Mm-hmm. Number two, and this is important, stick to what is real to the seller until you figure out how you can sincerely help the seller get what they want, and you can give it to them. Mm-hmm. Don't speak to them in ways that they're not willing to accept. What's real to them? Mm-hmm. Don't give them a seminar, in other words. Okay? Yep. Now you know that this step is done, and we're on step number 4, closing part 2, offer revealed. You know this is done, all right? It's a finished product, and before you can move on, when you try to truly help the seller, you will find these 2 things. Number 1, you will make a minimum of 3 offers conversationally with each seller. Now here's the point that I want to make, is if you're doing the previous steps and doing what I'm talking about, these offers will come to you naturally. They don't need to be taught to you by me. You don't need magical words. You don't need all this special stuff. You think you need to close them. It will come naturally to you if you just understand the 7 strategies, which, by the way, you can get at flippinghousesforrookies.com, and it's called, I think it's called Creative Real Estate Deal Making 101, right on the front page. Those videos, which we used to sell for a few $100s, are free now, and you can go there, and just watching those and then following this system should be enough to get you going. Mm-hmm. Because if you do the discovery stage and you do the things that we're talking about in this podcast, you'll get to a point where you will make a minimum of 3 offers conversationally with each seller. Mm-hmm. It's not some canned, like, here's what I can do. You know, it starts off with, here are my concerns, or here's how I think I can help you. If you're truly helping the person, this is like a marriage. You're proposing, would you like to do this? Would you like to do that? Sweetheart, would you like to marry me? Mm-hmm. It's a proposal. You're not demanding she marry you. You're saying, would you like to marry me? Right?
Yep.
And my wife is crazy enough to say yes. Imagine that.
She was.
Step 2. By using the hierarchy of the 7 deal strategy taught at flippinghousesforrookies.com/deal structure, or going to the front page, you'll know, based on the loan value ratio, just like we talked about before, and what they're talking about, how you can help them. Like suppose in the conversation they say, I rented before and they trashed the house. And you try to overcome that. They're not motivated to rent the house.
Yeah.
And if you try to overcome that thinking you're handling their objections, it's not going to work. Now, I would test it and I would explain, well, we don't really do it that way. But I would not push the point, which is what happens to a lot of rookie investors, is they're trying to shove it down their throat because they have data that is different than what the seller has, right? They're not willing to accept your information. They have their own data that they evaluated with based on their experience.
Yeah, but it's also emotional too. Even if it's logical that it should work, maybe they don't want to. And they don't have to. It's their house. Right. They don't want to, risk the emotion or the problem again. They don't have to. They can say no, whether it's logical or not.
Exactly.
It's not a matter of logic. It's think with emotion and back it up with logic.
Yep. All right, Peter, is this making sense so far?
Yeah, I only have one question. When you said to make 3 offers, don't they sometimes accept the first or second suggestion?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you have three available, but as soon as they pick one.
Well, my point there is that if you're doing it conversationally, right, and you're actually trying to help the person, you will find that making 3 offers is real simple. If they take the first offer, then obviously you don't have to go further. But my point is that you don't have to go into the deal thinking these are the 3 offers I'm going to give them, because once you get in the deal, because you haven't done this step yet, you haven't done these steps yet.
Yeah. We always think we know exactly what the reason is and what they want from home, sitting at the desk, right? Before we get out there. And you, folks, I'll go to a house with Bill. I have like the sheet with all the info. He doesn't want to see it till he's there. He doesn't want me to tell him what I think about it. Nothing. He wants you to see a little bit of it and then talk to the guy and see what it really is, not what
I want to get it right.
I
want to get it right from the source, right from the horse's mouth.
That's right.
Right? What a statement that is, huh?
Too much wishful thinking. What?
What a statement that is, right from the horse's mouth.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if I would ever buy a house from a horse. Okay, so is this making sense?
Stable. Yeah, maybe
is this making sense, Peter?
Yeah, it fits everything you've been doing, but you've got it lined up like in sequence, because sometimes like that line that you say, this beautiful script line, like when does it fit in? Well, you'll know in the conversation. We're not that smart, Bill.
Well, I wasn't for all these years. That's why it's taken me so long to give it to you.
Well, there's a lot going on here. We try to understand a person on the other end, and they're not telling you everything that's going on. They're not like, oh, here's my story, blah, 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 blah. They're not. You have to help them kind of sort it out and ask them questions and find out.
So John West says, I think I'll draw up an outline or a diagram for each for ease in talking to motivated sellers. John, I've done it. That's how I wrote this podcast. If you send me a support ticket, I will send it to you. I've already done it. I have a whole flow chart. I have it all laid out in 10 pages. They're all pictorial.
Whoa.
Yeah. I'm ready to move on, Peter.
Okay.
All right. What I'd like to do now, before we go into the steps 5 and 6, which are the deal meeting, right, and the paperwork, is give you a few tips that will help you with part 1 and part 2, the closing call stuff.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Absolutely.
So I'm going to sidestep here. I'm going to stop talking about the flow. So we've gone through steps 1 through 4, okay, which are step number 1, we went through finding potential seller lists. Step number 2 was contact those potential sellers by text and then by phone. Step number 3 was closing call part 1, the discovery stage. And step 4, the closing call part 2, offer revealed. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over some some tips. I have 5 of them.
Okay.
Okay. Although they're broken down in each category, I'm just going to read them. Okay. So these are tips that you can do during the discovery stage, and some of it in the offer stage, but it's mostly discovery stage. Okay.
Yeah.
So here we go. Tip number 1. Sellers are paying you. When I mean paying you, I mean giving you equity or cash flow with their properties. Right? That's how they're paying you.
Yeah.
Only if you give the seller relief and happiness that they are seeking. So it's relief or happiness or both. They're seeking some relief or happiness. So they're going to pay you for that.
Yep.
Most offers that they're going to get don't fully give them this help. Like if they went on the MLS, they're going to give them the money, but it doesn't solve their problem often. So the realtor system is really good. It has worked for many years, but it doesn't solve all of the problems. Like for example, we just closed on a house a few weeks ago. Okay. We signed a contract at 5:30 on a Friday night, and we closed on the property on Tuesday at 4:00.
That's crazy.
Reason why she didn't go to a realtor is because she couldn't do that. What she needed was her money that we gave her, because we gave her a chunk of dough, by the 19th. And it was like the 16th. She needed money like 3 or 4 days later, because she had dilly-dallied with this property for so long, trying to get the best deal and the best price and trying to shop everybody around. And other people actually gave her contracts that didn't perform. She ran out of time trying to get the best deal.
She had bills to pay.
And she had deadlines, yeah. You know, IRS and I think some mob money, and honestly, I think Asian mob, and I think there was a gun to her head for sure. Okay? But she couldn't get that from anybody else but somebody like us. So most offers don't fully give this type of help. So what she needed was relief and happiness.
Yep.
Okay? So my point here is that use human kindness and exceptional customer service to help the seller get what they want. Money flows to happiness. Always remember this natural law, and you will do better in getting transactions.
Yeah.
So many people think that they need to go study real estate, real estate deal making. They need to know everything they need to know before they start the deal. It is so not true. Human kindness and exceptional customer service will take you a long way in this business. Okay?
Absolutely.
Tip number 2. The seller's idea of value that you can bring to them makes deals happen. The seller's idea of value that you could bring to them makes deals happen. So the discovery stage finds out what they are unhappy about, and then you align everything to create the happiness. So it automatically builds value. That's why I say our offers stick to sellers like glue, or sellers stick to us like glue. That's why. You create this value within your ability to sincerely care about the seller's situation. It's not your solutions. It's that you care about their situation and them. Then you hold their hand and help them get what they want. You don't build a bridge from what you want to them. Instead, you build the bridge from what they want to you, or a solution.
Yeah.
So it's like you walk across the river, you get across the river, and you say, Mr. Seller, we're going to build a bridge across this river, and I'm going to hold your hand and help you do that till we get what you want.
Yeah.
and that makes deals. I'm telling you, the human kindness and the exceptional customer service is what makes deals. It's reciprocity. When you help somebody else, they'll want to help you by giving you the deal. And I'm not saying do it for that reason, but it's just a natural law.
Sure.
Am I getting too profound here? Does this make sense?
No, it's and it's not. I don't think it's always that hard either. You know, some of the deals that I've done, it was not that horribly complicated what the person needed. And you just say it enough times to get it through our thick skulls, and sometimes you have to dig for it a little bit. But it's not always that complicated. And to help them with it, it's not that terrible. They just have to be in the position of needing something. If they're like, no, I don't need anything. I got plenty of money. I want to sell this thing whenever I get the money I need. I don't care. Well, the guy's not motivated. Don't worry about it. You cannot change his mind. You cannot convince him. You cannot tell him how good you are, that you'll still make his life better when he's fine.
Right.
It's not going to happen. You're looking for it.
You're not going to change his motivation level.
No. It's find a motivated seller, not create a motivated seller.
Right. All right, so tip number 3. Find out what sellers want, then help them get it. This will carry the deal very, very far. And by the way, it'll stop sellers from ghosting you or ignoring you. But, Peter, you can't reveal solutions too quickly. You have to create some sort of a mystery to keep them coming along, right? This is kind of like when I talk about the dog treat, right? So you got a dog and he's stubborn and you're trying to tell him what to do. Come here, Fido. Come here, Fido. Fido, sit. Fido, do this. Fido, do that. And the dog just looks at you like you're a freak, right?
Yeah,
dog does nothing. Stubborn.
I got that dog.
Right?
Dog.
So how do you handle the dog? You find the dog's favorite treat and you get their attention, and the dog does whatever you want them to do because they want the treat.
Yep.
This is your seller. If you give them the treat, if you present them the treat that they want, then they're going to move, right?
Yep.
So don't give the solutions too quickly. You need to give the offer in a what the seller is willing to experience format or on a basis. So you have to give the offer on what the seller is willing to experience. Okay? Otherwise, if you don't do that, you stand a chance of causing a confusion. Right? Which is what happens to a lot of my private coaching clients when I hear their recordings. They're giving a seminar or they're talking about things that the seller is not willing to experience or doesn't understand, and they create a confusion.
Yeah.
And sellers say no when they're confused. So don't kill a deal without even knowing it because you're running your mouth off. You have to constantly be observant of your seller and find out if they're willing to experience what you're talking about. Are they willing to do a lease option, or do they have something stuck in their head where their grandmother did it and the tenant burned the house down and she lost $5 million? They're not willing to experience that, so don't try to shove it down their throat.
Nope.
Okay?
Yep.
Tip number 4. Your job as the investor, and your only job as a good investor or a real estate entrepreneur, which is what I'd rather say, is to find the seller's motivation. That's all your job is. Is it need or is it greed? That's what you're asking. I've simplified this. Is it need or is it greed? Now watch this, Peter. Need is relief. Is it need or is it greed? Need is relief. And you talk about monthly payments until you can get it paid off. So when they say need, you're going to talk about the deal strategies that include monthly payments, no down payments, all that kind of stuff. That's subject to, that's slot deals, that's rent to own, those type of deals. Does that make sense?
Yeah, would it be safe to say he's needy enough that he's willing to wait to get the thing to work?
He just wants the relief is more important to him than the money or her.
Yeah. He'll wait and... Okay.
Now watch this. Watch this. Greed, when it's greed, you talk about discounts they're willing to let you have.
Yep.
When doing greed, you use the maximum allowable offer formula, the Mayo formula. And that formula is after renovated value, or the house, what's the house worth once it's fixed up, times 30%, minus repairs if it's needed. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Times 70%. So its maximum allowable offer is the house's actual fixed up value after renovated value times 70% minus the repairs. Now, if the house doesn't need repairs, then you just don't minus repairs. So if it's a pretty house and they're asking $200,000 and they want cash, the only way you can consider it is if you do 200,000 times 70%, which by the way is 140 grand. I would pull back an extra 5,000 for closing, and you say, I'll give you 135,000 cash. Or pull back an extra 5,000 for repairs and 5,000 for you, so offer 130. Start lower than because it's maximum allowable offer. But here's the point. Your job is to find the seller's motivation. We have figured out how to do that easily. Figure out if it's need or greed. Now remember, we did that back in let me see what step it is. We started it out in closing call part 1. You're asking if they want to get their price or they want to sell quickly. So when you say they want their price, okay, it's greed. When they say they want to close quickly, it's need. You're asking that question. So you don't need to go have 5 years in Yale education to figure this out. You just ask them, what's more important to you? Selling quickly or getting your price? Or getting your price or selling quickly, whichever way you want to do it. That hones in on the need or the greed. Once you figure out that it's need or greed, if it's need, you talk about monthly payments. If it's greed, you talk about discounts. Can I make it any more simpler?
No, that's it. What I like about it, it's 1, 2. It's not 5 possibilities. It's 2 possibilities in each category. You know?
And if you understand the formulas, the 7 strategies, you know that when it's need, you talk about a slot deal, you talk about an option deal, you talk about a lease option. Okay? When it's greed, you're going to talk about subject to, you're going to talk about, retail rehab, you're going to talk about owner financing, you're going to talk about all that stuff. It breaks the deals down easily.
Yeah.
Okay? Last, step number 5, and then we're going to move on to the deal meeting. Tip number 5. Tip number 5 is have confidence. Okay. So the sole job of real estate entrepreneurs is to find out what is needed and wanted and how that's motivating the seller. So I always say find out what's needed and wanted, but why do they need it and want it? What's motivating them to get it?
Yeah.
Is it need or greed? What's motivating them? Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, good. Confidence comes in when you're giving them excellent customer service. Not the exact answers like most people think. Confidence, your confidence and the seller's confidence in the deal will come from overcoming the obstacles. Happiness is generated from overcoming the not unknown obstacles. Right? So happiness comes from doing your next step. Right?
Yeah. Every time you overcome some hurdle or get into the next step of the deal and the next step of the situation with the seller, you feel good. Like, I'm getting someplace. You start to smile, and you have some confidence. And like, hey, holy cow, this is working, Bill.
Right. So what did I say? Money flows to happiness. Your happiness and the seller's happiness. Right? Now, the exact solution is what most people think. Always do the next step, and you will never not know what to do. Right? If you don't know what the next step is, then tell your seller that you need to go figure it out, and go figure it out. Send me a support ticket, go do some research, you'll figure it out. That's the point of happiness, is overcoming that barrier for you and the seller. Your job is to be an excellent customer service rep that will bring them the answers that they don't have.
Right, and you don't have to be an encyclopedia of answers, knowing everything, having to study for 3 years just to have the first conversation, because customer service doesn't work like that. I was on the phone yesterday, consumer cellular, a cell phone thing, and a guy goes, well, I'm not sure if I can do that. Hang on, let me get my manager. Hang on. And hey, I talked to them and said, I thought it was a good idea, but they said it's okay, so I think we can do that. But hang on, I'll talk to my manager. Hang
or
on,
I'll go to the technical division. Let me send you over to the IT guys, or,
Yeah.
See, the problem
let me
is
ask my
that,
lawyer. Let me call my contractor. He
Right.
knows about this stuff.
Right.
Let me ask this guy. And they will trust you more for not being full of crap
Right.
and winging it. They'll trust you more that you have the presence of mind to go find a proper answer than just winging it like you're some smarty pants.
I have a news flash, Peter. In today's day and age, okay, sellers aren't apt to close the first conversation you have with them. Okay, it's just because the way the world is. There's a lot of scams. There's a lot of fake news. There's a lot of fake information. There's a lot of fakers, right? And people want to make sure that they're not in that web.
Yeah.
So building rapport and being honest and sincere and being a customer service rep for them will only get you more deals. By the way, it will be a huge education for you. One that you can't pay $20,000, $30,000, or $50,000 for. Can't do it.
Yeah.
Okay? Does all this make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, now let's go back to the deal meeting. Okay, so we're going to go back to step 5 of our flow. Okay?
Yeah.
So just to be clear here, so I'm not confusing anybody. Step 1.
No, the last things you just did were tips, general
Yes.
tips. And now
To
we're back
help
onto
you,
the
to help you with
sixth
the
step.
closing calls, yeah. So
Yeah.
step 1 is finding potential sellers list. Step 2, contact those potential sellers by text and then by phone. Step 3 is closing call part 1, the discovery. Step 4 is closing call part 2, offer revealed. So the tips that I just gave you will help you in step 3 and step 4, which is closing call part 1, the discovery step, and closing call part 2, the offer revealed. Those 5 tips that I just gave you will help you do those.
Yep.
Immensely. These are the core, these are like the foundation of those. You do these things as I just gave you tips. It's how I do deals. Kill them with kindness. And don't fake it. Be sincere. Be interested, not interesting. Be sincere. Okay? So now we're going to move on to step 5, which is the deal meeting part 1. And that's property inspection. The description of this step is: inspect the property either virtually or physically. You can do either one, to make sure it fits one of your exit strategies according to your available resources and education. So like I have a couple deals I was looking at in my system in Akron, Ohio. One house was worth $78,000. She wanted $18,000. I looked at the pictures online. It was a complete mess and not a great neighborhood. And I just said, said to my guys, I don't want the house. Could I make money on it? Yeah. It's in Akron, Ohio. If it was in my backyard, I would have went and looked at it. Because I have more resources here in Connecticut than I do in Akron. So it's just and the reason why I could do that is because of my experience, because I have lots of leads, often deals that I can work on, right? And I don't have to be of the scarcity mentality, like this might be the only deal I'm going to get in 6 months. So I don't have to make a deal that would be outside of my available resources and my education. Well, not my education, but you know what I mean? To make the deal. Don't be forced to make a deal just because you need money. Here's one of the things that I would do as a sales manager. If I had a salesman that was like stuck and not making sales, I would scan back and I would have him scan back and ask who he had attention on. Well, I had attention on Joe. Well, tell me what happened in that sales cycle. And he would have attention on those things. Like, well, he said that, blah, 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 blah. And the salesman went into agreement with that. And because of that, had a mental block of attracting more deals. These type of deals are the same way. If you take that deal and it's really hard to do, it'll take your attention and create a mental block for new deals to come in because all your attention's on that one deal. You can't let a deal suck your attention dry because it'll kill your business. It'll be booms and depressions. It'll be really busy, really slow. Right? It's kind of like an auto repair facility. You have a person up front, the service writer up front, and the mechanic in the back fixing the cars. Right? So the service writer sells the work and the mechanic in the back fixes it. If you're doing that all yourself, you go up front, you sell a bunch of work, and then you got to go in the back and fix all the cars. While you're fixing the cars, nobody's selling more work. So what happens is you get all the work done, and then, oops, I don't have anything else to do. This is the average investor. They try to do everything themselves, so they're not trying to buy new houses because they bought a house. They go fix the house up, they sell the house, make all their money, and then, oops, they have nothing else to do. They have nothing in the pipeline.
Yeah.
Okay? So what I'm saying here is that if the deal is not in alignment with your resources and your education where it can go smoothly and it's not going to suck all your attention, then do it. If it's going to do all that, then stay away from it. If not, clear in your mind how you can do this deal. Assign the deal to somebody else who's qualified and let them close and make a fee. Right? Or pass on the deal and don't try to make it work for you and waste your energy and resources on this type of a mind deal because you're blinded by the $30,000 profit. Right? Just if it's not in your wheelhouse, assign it to somebody else. Make your $5,000. Okay? Is this clear?
Sure.
So this is property inspection. So here are the actions to do for property inspection. There's two tools that you should pay attention to, or two things that you should do. One is use an inspection report to do the inspection. If you go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, top right-hand side, it says free stuff. There's an inspection report there. The reason why you're using an inspection report is not to figure out how much the repairs are. It's so you don't forget to look at something. Like one time I was in a house and I was looking around and I walked around for 20 minutes thinking there's something not right about this house, right? And yeah, there was something wrong with it. There was no furnace in the house. Okay, and I started looking for the heating system, and the bank actually paid somebody to remove it so it looked like it was the natural house. There was no furnace in the house, which is stupid for a bank to do because they're going to do an inspection, and it was just dumb anyways. But my point is that if it's not there, you may not miss it. So the inspection report is good to make sure that you have all the points covered.
Yeah.
It's not so much about the price of of it all. It's just that you don't miss something. Okay.
Yep.
So have some sort of a checklist or some sort of an inspection form so that when you're inspecting the property, you cover it all.
Right. Okay.
Number 2, you're going to want to look at the sold comparables in the immediate area so you know what the buyers need and want. It's not so much about the price, it's what are buyers buying. It's a survey of what buyers are looking for and buying. So obviously, if you have a house that is sold for over market value, you want to look at that house and see what about that house created the bidding war. And can you make your house align with that, or can you produce that same type of a product to the buyers so they can overbid on your house too? So you want to survey.
Yes, you're finding out what people really want, and like
And
hamburgers or cheeseburgers.
Right. Yeah, hamburgers or pork chops. So you're doing that in the property inspection stage. Now I want you to realize that the sequence of this, that the property inspection stage is almost the last part of the formula. Because if we don't know what the seller's motivation is, because like I always say, in a closing, the house is not there signing the documents. The human being that has the ability to sign the documents is there. So we've spent this entire system on talking about motivation, what's needed and wanting, and producing it, right? Now that the sellers agreed to all of that, now we need to actually check the house out to make sure it qualifies. Because if it doesn't, you can always say, I don't want it.
Yeah.
But the house is the lesser of the two facts. The house doesn't need to be motivated. It's just got to be a functional house, and it's got to align with what you can sell.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So to finish off this step, the products you need before you can move on are, ready for this? This is so cool, Peter. This is so cool. I've got goosebumps doing this. I'm so happy that we have this now. So you need to ask these questions. Here's the products of this step. This is deal meeting part 1. Okay? Ready? Here are the questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Where's the money now in this deal? Money now.
Oh, yeah. How are you going to make some money now?
So where's the money now in this deal? Number 2, is there money monthly in this deal? Number 3, how much is the money later or the equity in the deal? Sure. Now, if you have all 3 of them in the deal, you've hit the trifecta, you're going to make the most amount of money, the most amount of profit, that's the best deal you can do, is the trifecta, all 3 of them. We have money now, money monthly, money later. But at this particular point, you've gotten enough data from your seller and you've looked at the property that you have to ask yourself, where's the money now? Where's the money monthly? Where's the money later? Now, if you just have money now, right? So knowing each of these, it starts to put closure on the deal for you in your mind. Right? And how much time and resources you should expend on this transaction or not expend on this transaction. So if you're just going to do a slot deal and it's only going to make you $5,000, you don't want to work on this deal 50 hours a week for the next 3 weeks.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
If it's going to make you $90,000, then you might want to spend 3 hours a minute trying to make this deal.
I like that.
Right?
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, you have to figure what you're doing in relation to what you're getting.
What is the potential you can get?
Yeah. All of that considered. Because some deals may not be much money now and a little bit monthly, but a big wad at the end. Look at that as like your investment in the future. Who cares? Or a bunch of money now. Okay, fine. You get money now. Nothing wrong with that. But you have to look at all of it. One thing I learned from you is when you're doing any kind of a deal, don't just look at a little piece of it. Oh, I wouldn't do that. I don't want to do that. But look at the whole story. Well, in the end, how's it going to turn out? How much will we make, all considered?
But notice where that is in the steps now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but Bill, we want to do that first. We want to do that first up front. Like, honey, there's a house for sale. Guess how much we can make?
All right, good. Let's move on so we can finish off because we're at time's up right now. Step number 6, deal meeting part 2.
Uh-huh.
This is the paperwork.
Yeah.
Okay. Description of this step is doing paperwork and explaining the entire deal to the seller using the documents. Now,
All right.
pay attention to this, Peter. This is vital information. Get your papers ready there so you can write and you can listen to me.
Hear the crinkling?
Yes. No, I know I don't have your attention, so.
Yeah, these microphones get all the crinkly too. Okay.
So the description of this step is doing the paperwork and explaining the entire deal to the seller using the documents. This step ends the cat and mouse chase and puts the rubber to the road on this deal.
Yeah.
It is the first place to start getting excited about the transaction if the seller finds the documents. So you could have a faker on the other end. You could have a person pretending like they're going to do the deal with you. But until it comes to the documents and signing them, you don't know that. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So here are the actions. Figure out which deal works best on paper for you and the seller. Is it slot paperwork? Is it option paperwork? Is it rent to own, subject to, rehab, retail, wholesale, or owner financing?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
Which brings us to step number 2. It really comes down to, are you giving money or not? On which paperwork you're going to use. And are you receiving the deed or not? So if you put money up, you got to get the deed in your name.
Yep.
If you're not putting money up, you don't need to do that. So, for example, if you're not putting money up, the slot deal, the option deal, rent to own, or wholesale, you don't need to get the deed and you use those documents. So if you're not putting money up if you're not putting money up and need to protect your money with the deed, then you can do a slot deal, an option deal, a rent to own, or a wholesale deal.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Excuse me. If you are putting money up and going to get the deed, then you want to do a subject to, a rehab, retail, owner finance, and get the deed.
Yeah.
It's not any more difficult than that. It's are you putting money up and getting the deed? If you are, you do subject to, rehab, retail, owner financing type deals. If you're not putting money up and the deal's a little risky, you don't know if you can sell it, you're not sure, you don't want to have a much obligation or a lot of risk, then you're going to do a slot deal, an option deal, rent to own, or wholesale deal. Because those deals you don't need money. And what's the law, Peter? The only way to not lose money in a deal is?
Don't put money into the deal.
There you go. So if you're worried about losing money, then just stick with slot, option, rent to own, or wholesale deals.
Mm-hmm. That's a good way to start in this business.
Yeah.
You'll sleep better and you'll learn the business.
So, by the way, if you want paperwork for all of these and you can't find it online, if you go to flippinghousesforrookies.com and you go to the courses button on the top, there is actually a portal there that you can buy all my documents. Okay?
Yep.
So, often when you're passing the deed, you need money. Now, I want to clarify this. Excuse me. I'm talking about $5,000 or less not needing money. Okay? So you can go up to 5,000. I prefer you don't do anything, but if you're going to put $5,000 into a house, that's not real money. You can write a check for that. Most people can write a check for that or use their credit card or whatever. Okay. So if you're passing the deed, you use a closing agent. The rest of the deals, if you're not passing a deed, then you could do tabletop closings and perform them yourself.
Yeah.
Man, I've covered it all here, haven't I?
You actually have. I mean, it's amazing. We talk about these things, but the way you put it in sequence and where it goes, it's extremely clear. And just everything has like A, B.
Yeah.
A, B. Pick one or the other.
So if you're going to pass a deed, use a closing agent. If you're not going to pass a deed, you can do the tabletop closings yourself. Doesn't mean you can't use an agent, but you could do it yourself. The paperwork is all in layman's language, so you can understand it.
Yep.
Okay, so you finish this step, which is step 6, deal meeting, part 2, the paperwork. When the seller fully understands the deal and is comfortable enough to sign and notarize the proposed and presented documents.
Yeah.
And that's either done in person, at an agent's office, or on a Zoom call virtually using DocuSign. And you can notarize documents. It's on notarize.com. You can have them notarized virtually if you use notarize.com. Pretty cool, huh?
Amazingly cool.
So
I hadn't seen the virtual notarize before.
Yeah.
But you must be doing that on these long distance deals.
Yep. So in final, Pete, all the rest of our podcast, courses, and mostly coaching is wrapped around this system. So mostly the coaching is designed to help you get through all these steps, because today I'm telling you what to do. I'm not necessarily telling you how to do it. Right? This is just a layout so you know what to go through on every deal. Just like McDonald's, Pete. If you don't go to Hamburg University and learn the system, you won't get the desired paid for products or results. The same is true with creative real estate. Nowhere at McDonald's do you get to do it yourself or reinvent.
Do it your way. Do it your way is another commercial.
Right. If you do it yourself, that's called Burger King or In-N-Out or Wendy's. A reinvented wheel doing the core thing their own way, which is making and selling fast food or fast burgers. Okay? But McDonald's was the first. Burger King would not be Burger King. In-N-Out Burger would not be In-N-Out Burger. List all of them.
Yep.
Right? Wendy's would not be Wendy's. And so many other industries had there not been a system. I mean, Henry Ford started it with the assembly line.
Yeah, huh?
Yeah. But McDonald's brought that ability to hire teenagers, pay a minimum wage, and make billions of dollars because they have a system. And if you plan on making a shit ton of money with real estate, you too need a system, and we've covered that today.
I like it.
So this is the beginning of my attempt of making standard operating procedures for real estate investors that can actually align everybody's information to if you do this. If you understand this core concept of what you have to do, then it will align all of your data and all of your ideas and all of your work that you've already done. It will align it so you can start getting results.
Yep.
Okay.
Hey, Bill. Nice job.
Thank you.
You must wake up. You must wake up in the middle of the night with this stuff in your head.
Sometimes. Yeah, it was very revealing when I decided this a couple weeks ago. I was reading some stuff and I decided I got to do this, and I've been thinking about it and trying to put it together. Honest to God, I spent days writing this podcast. Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't write the podcast as an after effect. I spent days writing the system. Scratch paper and just kind of working through it and just really, really trying to keep it so it's not my opinion. It's the truth of how a deal works. Mm-hmm. So it's the basic simplicity of how a deal works and the core flow of how a deal works. So I have truth on my side. Yeah. Just go experience. You don't have to believe me anymore. You don't have to listen to me anymore. Just go do a deal and you'll see this is what happens. Go test it out for yourself. Don't believe me. Just go test it out for yourself and see what happens. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you will soon find that it's there. Rick from Australia. You're welcome, Rick. I'm glad you're here, man. I'm so glad you're here. Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Crap.
He said, thank you, Bill. You're very welcome.
What time is it in Australia? Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's 2 days from now, a day and a half from now. All right, Peter. So there you have it. You have it's the first day of the rest of our lives. We now have this system. We will keep referring to it. We will keep coming back to it. We will use this as our stable datum in the creative real estate business. And for all the other gurus listening right now, I got it. With a lot of work.
Nice.
All right, guys. Over and out. Podcast number 248 is done. If you, I didn't do this at the beginning of the podcast. If you go into, you're welcome, Jefferson. If you go into your description of this podcast, there is a link there. And as soon as I get my graphics, my flowchart arranged, I notice that there are some things that aren't correct. As soon as I get that fixed, we will get that on the website, so you can download the 10 or 12 page ebook that has the flowcharts and the graphics on it. That'll be another week or so, and you can go check it out at the free stuff page. So just go into the description of where you watched this or heard this podcast, and the link is there to go to the free stuff page. I've been changing that page. There's some videos there, some changes I've made in the last month, so go check it out. Also, please go to flippinghousesforrookies.com. Top right hand side, it says testimonials. Please go leave me a testimonial. I'm trying to hit over 100 and there's not very many left. So if you could go do that, I would really appreciate your comments, good or bad, on what you think. Okay, about me, about my system, about Peter, about the podcast, all of it. Okay. And of course, if you have any questions, just send me a support ticket on that same page, flippinghousesforrookies.com, top right hand side. I don't have a virtual assistant answering my support tickets. I do it all myself. I'd like to have a virtual assistant answering them some days, but I still do it all myself. Okay? So thank you for all of your support. Thank you for helping me figure this out. Thank you for your feedback. And thank you for going out there and actually buying properties the way we do it and making this all very real. Over and out.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.